And thanks, Alessandro.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Comment, you had the best slides at the right routing area open meeting, Gunter. Best presentation.
The longest one for sure.
Yeah. I think that Scion guy, after he saw yours, he was going to hightail it back to Zurich.
Hey, good morning, guys. Can you hear my voice? Do you hear me well?
Yes, yes, yes. Works perfectly.
Super, thanks.
Let's give it one more minute and then let's get started. Okay, let's get started. So we are like 1 minute past 10. So this is 1 minute past 10 o'clock. So let's get started with our session here. So we have a 2-hour slot, and the agenda is reasonably lightly populated. So I think we have enough time for Q&A if that actually is necessary. And yeah, so as you can see also, there's like nobody sitting in the front due to unforeseen circumstances. It is unfortunately, the way it is right now. Luckily, beyond the initial hiccup of Meet Echo, having a small issue, that actually has been fixed now also. So I think, everything is ready to go as such. So welcome all to Link State Vector Routing Working Group. First, some administrivia. So this is the node well. You probably have seen it already, right? By now, and it just says like that if you're participating into the IETF and whatever you say and so on, there's like an IPR relationship here you have to take to be into account. Now, in addition to that, there is also some anti-harassment procedures and code of conduct. So be friendly, be kind, be nice, and don't make discussions like personal, but keep it on topic on a technical level. Also for meeting tips, and this is especially important now, maybe not so much because we only have like 3 people in the room, I believe. So if you want to ask a question, use the tools, and then we will be able to grant you access to the microphone through the remote access tools here from the chairs. If you're local, just hit the little thingy here, what you can see on the right hand side, and then you will be able to get into the queue through that channel. So we also have a few interesting links, as you can see. You probably have seen them already, and these are just for reference in here. I'm gonna go on further. So for the rest, so for the Jabber Scrap, we have a Jabber tool. So because Meet Echo is directly integrated with it. For minutes, Victor is going to take care of that one. And then let's go towards the agenda of what we have. So as I mentioned, so we have a reasonably light agenda, and we have like a long time schedule planned, ahead of us. We have 3 draft topics to talk about. First is the LSVR fluid reduction work, which is being to be reintroduced again, and then we have 2 drafts from Randy, which are speaking of like L3DL, but then over layer 3 technology itself. The first 2 topics. So for the next steps, so where are we with the working group itself and with our work? So finally, we were able to request the IANA code points for our main specification draft. It has been reviewed and it actually has been re-edited also. We are now at dash version 16, and I believe this is ready to go towards IESG, if I'm not incorrect. Is that correct, Victor? Okay, it's probably not connected on the mic.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll be doing that, very shortly. So it took, a lot longer than as anticipated for getting to the code points, mainly because, the chairs, had to figure out how to request those things. So that took more time than anticipated. So sadly enough, but we are there now, and the draft is ready. It has been reviewed a few times, so we believe it is reasonably okay. It is actually in a good shape. And then the other thing, what we discussed already during the previous IETF meeting, is we will have to recharter the LSVR working group, and we had to wait upon the moment we could, submit or finalize our prime draft here, the BGP SPF, and ship it towards IESG, so that we actually have our work, our main work item finished from the working group, and that could actually kick off then like a recharter of the LSVR charter itself. And the main goal would be to actually include the L3DL work as formal entities of the working group itself. So this is this discussion we will actually kick off, starting from next week, and we will start, discussing what and how the new charter is going to be, and then check with the working group, if there's interested people on that one, and to form, the correct text for that. Any questions on that or remarks? Otherwise, we will move towards, the draft presentations. Okay, nothing. I hope everybody's microphone is working though. So let me go to the first one. So Heimo, are you ready? Do you want me to drive the slides, or will you be driving the slides?
You drive the slides. Thank you.
Okay, here we are.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about the BGP SPF flooding reduction. Next page. At first, I would like to thank AC, AO, and Donald for their valuable comments and suggestions to the draft. We made some changes to the previous version. Firstly, we simplified the draft through removing a complicated option, which is called the router reflector group option, from the RR model, and then some editorial changes. Next page. So this is the current simplified, revised flooding procedure in router reflector model. So basically, BGP SPF speaker will send its linked information to one or two router reflectors, even though we have multiple router reflectors in the network. After receiving the link state, the router reflector will just send the link state information to the other BGP speakers. So this is simple. For example, in the network here, we have two router reflectors, R1 and R2. We have a number of nodes, A, B, C, and D in the network. Node A will just send its link states to one router reflector, RR1. It will not send its link states to RR2. After receiving the link state from node A, RR1 will send the link states to the other BGP SPF speakers. So this is simple. And also, the link states flooding is reduced. Next page. The revised flooding procedure in node of connection model is not changed in the draft. So this procedure is similar to the one in the IGP flooding reduction. So every node has a flooding topology in the network, and then every node will send the link states information to its peers on the flooding topology. So for example, we have a real network on the right, and we have a flooding topology on the left. Node A will only send link states information to its peers on the flooding topology. So for example, node A will only send link states to node B and node D, which are on the flooding topology. Node A will not send the link states to node C, even though node C is a peer of node A on the real topology, but node C is not peer of node A on the flooding topology. So in this way, we reduce the link state flooding in the network. So next page. So I think that's all. I think for right now, the flooding reduction is simplified in the current draft. And also we would like comments, and also looks like the draft is simplified and stable, and I would also like adoption calls if possible. Thank you.
So any questions towards Heimo or on his work? Alvaro.
Hi, Alvaro Retana. I hate to say this, but I haven't read the draft. I'm assuming the draft talks about how, in the route reflector case, you select one route reflector over the other, and how the second route reflector eventually gets the state, gets the routes, right? So because if there's a failure and you only send the routes in one place, in one direction, then you're screwed, right? And I'm assuming the draft also talks about how you select the flooding topology.
Yes, that's right. Those details are already in the draft. For example, for selecting the route reflector, so we can select the route reflector with a minimum ID. Those details is in the draft. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your comments.
Yeah. Any other questions from people in the room or remote? Okay, so Heimo, so I think one of the questions you put here on this slide also is, is about adoption. Now, frankly, I think it is, it's a bit early on that, before we adopt, this kind of work. I would like to see some discussion actually on the email list about this, and to get a sense, of the people who are going to be contributing to the document, in the future, if they find it like, if it is like something that they find useful or necessary for this particular environment, and just basically to see like more discussion on the working group list at all, because I think in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months actually the communication has been reasonably light. So I think if you would launch a question, it probably will trigger like lots of people paying attention and giving you feedback on where to go and how to do it, and if not, at least it's actually a first step into the direction of for having the group working on this particular work item. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then let me jump to Randy's slide. You have anything else to say, Victor, for about this?
Thank you.
Okay, Randy, you have full control of the deck.
Hey, Gunter?
Yes.
I got in the queue late. This is AC Lindum, Cisco Systems.
Ah.
I was just going to say, in terms of the Wemo draft, I've read it briefly. I haven't gone through all the corner cases, but we always implied that we could do this, but we kept it out of the base specification, so it's in line with our work.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
with the week
okay.
that you could reduce the flooding
Okay.
and said it was out of scope in the base specification. So I think it's definitely in the scope of work.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, AC.
Okey doke. This draft, excuse me, this has not been customized for LSVR. When IDR working group looked at L3DL, they said, hey, how about also a layer 3 solution? So this is a cousin of L3DL customized for IDR discovery, BGP discovery in the data center. It's really two drafts, the usual suspects. It's attempting to be very boring. And one bit of philosophy throughout is it's not probabilistic, right? You'll see everything is lockstep, and it immediately switches to hopefully TLS, but at least TCP, et cetera, for just dead lockstep reliable protocols. Okay. It's like L3DL, except it's layer 3. The PDUs will look very familiar to you. It uses one UDP multicast hello for initial discovery. And that's to find candidates for establishing real TCP. It's session-oriented and resumable, like L3DL. There's no retransmission needed because TCP does all that. It keeps the minimal needed state. So it's not retransmitting, it's not refreshing. The ends are supposed to remember what they're doing, and the protocol only sends changes. Due to the fact that it's over TCP TLS, it's reliable in order delivery, etc. Okay. The goal is to find neighbors, learn the layer 3 addressing and bootstrap BGP, same as before with L3DL. You'll notice little stars once it has discovered the AFI-SAFIs. There's a little star in the blue up arrow because it doesn't have 7752 BGP-LS communication to BGP. There's some discussion of that going on in IDR. The feeling seems to be that that happens all under the table inside the implementation. I have some questions about that, which I'll save for the end. Remember, this isn't a routing protocol. It's just to discover layer 3 addresses on point-to-point and multi-point. Type length value 101. We've got version number in here. Is a change. This is the UDP hello. It's about to change because of discussion in IDR. The flags is to say, hey, what flavor connection do you want? TCP or TLS? Self-signed or CA-based certificates? This should really be an enumeration, which is raw TCP, TLS self-signed, TLS CA-based, and what really should be there is TLS CA-based with address in the certificate, so it's locked to an address. There's a port in there on the hello, just in case you didn't like the IANA assigned port. The TLS session is opened by the hello peer with the lowest IP address. The highest address acts as a client. There's some discussion of how this is handled in an internet exchange that has route servers. 2 comments about that so far is, one, that wasn't in the goal set. This is for a data center. And 2 is that all the route servers I know, and I do actually run routers that are on exchanges, are at the lowest addresses. So just don't field a server and you'll connect to the route servers. TLS, the hello set, whether it's CA-based or self-signed. If it's self-signed, we call this trust on first use. I jokingly call it married on first date. You've seen it's gone out of fashion, thank you, to less encrypt and free certificates. But you certainly remember browsers saying, I don't know this certificate, do you want to trust it anyway, et cetera, et cetera. So it's believed without question by the client. You do get integrity because you've got TLS. And if you disconnect and reconnect, you know you're reconnecting to the same attacker, if that is satisfying. In general, we expect CA-based keying, which is enrolled in a certificate authority, and the server must use the cert, and the client therefore can check that the cert from the server is indeed signed because it has been provisioned with the public key of the trust anchor. Okay, and they're actually, we won't go into detail here, but you can find it in RPKI router certificates. There are 2 modes of enrolling. One is self-generated on the router, and the other is generated in the CA. Okay, the choice of which is for the operator. So you now have a TLS or TCP session, and you wish to have an L3 neighbor discovery session within it. There's a session ID, which is a nonce that identifies the session that will be there, and it's the same session until something bad happens. There's a serial number in each of the data PDUs. Think of it as a checkpoint that if you decide to restart, you can tell your friend, hey, I've still got the same session ID. Can we resume from this serial number, please? And then there's a miscellaneous collection of attributes. In this case, we're suggesting to not have predetermined attributes, but leave that entirely up to the operator. Okay. All PDUs are acknowledged. The acknowledgement is either of E-type 0, there was no error and you're all happy, or actual errors. And the errors can be of various severities. And there's an error code and an error hint that look a lot like SMTP errors and browser errors, etc., with a code and a further subcode. Okay, so it's fully stateful. It's a session per peer. It does have restart. It can be resumed. One of the co-authors is a major BGP freak, so he manages to argue for all these BGP-like features. Okay, so I want to tell you what IPv4 addresses I have. And as I said, there's a serial number, and then there's a count of the IPv4 addresses. And for each one, there's the address and the prefix length, but there's also flags. Am I announcing or withdrawing that v4 address? Is it a primary or secondary? Is it underlay or overlay? Is it a loopback? There can be more reserved at the moment. So, for instance, you might have a v4 encapsulation PDU that says, here's my primary address, and here's a loopback address. And if later this system says, hey, peer with the following address, and it hands you the loopback address, you know to forward through the primary. Okay. Of course, there's IPv6 and MPLS v4 and v6. So now we want to communicate BGP stuff. It's meant for arbitrary above layer 3 protocols, so far only defined for BGP. There's a PDU, upper layer protocol configuration. It's only defined for BGP. And then it has a list of sub TLVs with a count of the elements in that list. The idea is still to provide the absolute minimal set of configuration parameters for BGP Open to succeed. You don't want to duplicate what's going to be in BGP Open because multiple sources of truth are a recipe for death. Okay, so what's my ASN? What's my IPv4 peering address? Of course, there's a v6 version 2. That prefix length is an error. It has to be removed because it's just the address. You know the prefix length from the base PDU. Okay, there's authentication data, and there's whether you have GTSM TTL check. And that's all you really need. Of course, there's one for an IPv6 peering. Even though the BGP sec says that the same AS and 2 devices can only have one peering, thank you, Robert, who's reminded me of this hidden fact. Practice is they actually do. So you can set up a v6 and a v4 peering with the same PDU. Remember that the base protocol provided marked loopbacks. So, are these features or bugs? I think it's a matter of taste. It's stateful and restartable. It's rigid and has handshakes and pacing, solid confirmation. It's got TCP. It's based over TCP. If you have BGP, you have TCP. You may not have TLS, though I think any modern device certainly probably does. But if you're rolling out a data center, I would think you've got it, but you don't have to. If you want security, do you roll your own or shut up and use TLS? In the security world, rolling your own security is a obscene statement. Okay, it provides large scale, probably more than BGP needs. The thought is for EVPN, but the scaling really, if you're not using it, only costs a few bits in the length fields. You don't actually have to fill 3,000 sub PDUs. You just have to allow the length field to be big enough to handle it. That's pretty much it, except I have some questions and issues that we discussed in IDR, and they're still interesting. How are parameters passed to BGP? Okay, in LSVR, I think it's BGP-LS, but in IDR, the implementers say, hey, that's my business. It's under the table. My BGP speaks to my discovery. You don't tell me how to do it. But the question still stands, how is BGP started, restarted, and stopped? What's the timing? How do we communicate that? A friend have said, hey, pack it all in one ULPC PDU. When that PDU is received, you have all the parameters you need, start the sucker. If you receive another, restart it. He hasn't said how it's stopped. When is discovery finished? And when should it be stopped? Should it be stopped? Right? If you're on multi-point, you probably want to keep going with the hellos because somebody new can come on. Okay, is the restart ability really needed? And that's my deck. Questions? Do I see snow out the window?
Hey, Gunter, I don't know if you can see the queue.
Hi, AC, just talk.
Okay, AC Lindum, Cisco
I
Systems.
was talking to the mute button. Sorry.
The first comment I had was you were talking about forwarding. Do you envision this protocol actually installing routes to get it to the loopback address, or do you see that to be under the purview of the clients of this protocol, like for example BGP?
The latter.
Okay, so it's like LLDP discovery where we said we weren't going to install the route. Okay. The second comment I had is that on this last page, a lot of times, like for instance, if you look at other protocols that give hints it's a hint, and you would never stop a protocol based on the discovery protocol. Once you start a session, it's up to that protocol. Like for instance, a good example of this, of course, it's used for liveliness detection, not for discovering the parameters, is BFD. So if just because
Agreed.
you just
Yes.
disable BFD, that doesn't mean you would stop it, right? If you okay.
Yeah. Which is why this is a question, right?
Yeah.
Remember, this was from IDR. Here,
Okay. Yeah. Right.
You've got BGP. Here you've got BGPLS, so they have a signaling protocol which they can use to argue
Right.
about it.
I mean, the way I see all these discovery protocols, the parameters change. It's not compatible with the current session. There's something that needs to be done. The capabilities need to be renegotiated based on those. It would be up to BGP to stop or restart the session. That's the way I see it anyway.
Thanks, AC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me also, but then as one of the contributors. So something what we see also in the IGP world when doing discoveries is there is an exchange of interest for doing like strict BGP. So there have been some extensions in the hello, ways of doing like discovery that the node actually is capable of doing of BFD itself. So from the moment that the session is built up, that only then you can actually start up the BGP or the IZS or the OSPF, and then do a fast failure if it actually fails. So is that something which you intend to include in this also? To advertise a preference that BFD has to be established after your L3DN neighborship actually is established, or do you see them as they're not compatible? But
I have no objection to that. Anything which is not compatible in a data center, in my opinion, is a big red alarm because something broke in the provisioning system, right? So if both sides aren't compatible for BFD, then that's an error. Kayer, I think, wanted to speak to the point. I can smell it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Gunter. I think this solution can benefit from auto discovering and auto negotiating BFT as well, alongside of BGP. And as you do that, I think you
It
can
would go
address.
here.
Yeah, exactly. The fast session deactivate. Thank you. You actually raised a point where we always made a claim that said that a good generic discovery protocol mechanism is needed, and here it comes that alongside of BGP, you may need something like BFD negotiation to be in place also. Thank you. That's all I had.
Could you drop that in an email, Gunter?
Yes, no problem. I'll send it to the list.
Thank you.
Preferably
Any
on
other
the mailing list.
Yes, yes. So any other questions or observations?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. Let me go back to the first deck here.
Yeah, I just have one. Are we still going to progress this protocol in this working group? We are, aren't we? This is AC Linda again from Cisco Systems.
That's a question to the chairs, I guess.
Yes, yeah, the L3.
L3DL. So we were thinking of, so when we do the rechartering, then the idea would be to include L3DL, the layer 2 technology, as part of the charter of the working group itself. So this cousin actually of L3DL, it's relatively new. I'm not really sure yet. If we would like to work upon two different sets here, it is something we can debate. But I have the impression that Alvaro wants to say something about that also, because he lined up very quickly.
Sorry, Paul, I'm going to stand in front of you. Alvaro Tana routing ED. Yeah, so that is the plan, and that is what we had agreed with the IDR chairs way back when all this started. This was, of course, a few years ago, and it was before IDR put so much emphasis on discovery as well. We had, of course, consulted with them because what we're doing here is discovering the BGP peers, right? So we felt that it would apply to other things. So yes, that is the intent. We probably need to do one more round of syncing and consulting with IDR just to make sure we're all on the same page. But barring any issues, yes, this working group would then do L3DL. As for the layer 3 version, we'll need to have more conversations around that.
Thank you, Alvaro. Paul?
Yes. Paul Congdon, Telac Networks. I had this is my ignorance on the layer 3 discovery hello multicast. How is that contained within the network? Are there filters or ACLs or something that keep those things from flooding all over the place, or do they just flood all over the place?
Two things. One, it's point-to-point links. Two, it's GTSM. TTL count.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
Back to Alvaro's point. This layer 3 discovery is just here informatively. I don't think if you want it, if the chairs and Alvaro want it in this group, that's fine. It was really intended to be informative here.
You and I are in sync, Randy. Thanks.
Right. And there are some interesting things in it that some of the PDUs were a little further developed than the last time you saw L3DL. So they'll merge and they'll go both their own ways. And IDR will decide whether they want layer 2 or layer 3 or both. And God knows, we're just trying to be friendly and accommodating.
I see.
AC Lyndon, Cisco Systems. Hey, I was just going to comment on the scope of the PDUs. I have read these drafts, but not before this IETF. I haven't read the latest iteration of them, so I don't remember everything. But I would think you would just use the all routers multicast address, which is link scoped in both IPv6 and IPv4, and then it would never go beyond one link. Or are you thinking these are going to go beyond one link, these discovery packets? Beyond one hop. I mean beyond one hop. It's early in the morning.
I was thinking Sue would speak to that, but if not, oh, she's left. It's allowed, but that's a configuration option. It's currently not envisioned to do so. Certainly not one layer, more than one layer 3. The question is whether layer 2, care want to speak, go for it.
Yeah, layer 2, you get that for free. I mean, with
Yep.
it at layer 2. So
Yeah, this is Keyur Patel again, Arcus. That is how you would probably want to do, just as you have it to all routers. AC.
my apologies for not I haven't read, like I said, I haven't read it in the last month.
Okay, Keyur, you still in the queue or? Okay, then I think if there's like no further questions, then I think we have reached the end of the session here. So we have used about 40 minutes from the 2-hour slot. So you got like 1 hour and 20 minutes back. Thank you all.
Efficient protocols.
Thanks. Bye-bye. See you next time. See you in Philadelphia.
Thank you.
Hopefully in real time live.
Thanks.
Hopefully, we'll see you in Philadelphia in person.
That's the plan.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you in Philadelphia too, Victor.
See ya, Victor, in Philadelphia.